Welcome into the Talkin Tide podcast on the Pigskin Podcast Network. I'm Chase Goodbread, the sports columnist with the Tuscaloosa News, co-host of Crimson Cover Television on WVUA 23, joined by Travis Reier, the senior analyst at BamaOnline.com. You can get the Talkin Tide podcast anywhere you like to get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and as well on YouTube or Facebook. Our Twitter feed is Talkin_Tide, TALKIN, no G, _Tide. Get links to all of our podcasts there. Quickly want to thank four sponsors, two local, two corporate: Peterbrook, chocolatier of Tuscaloosa; North River Dental Associates; Raycon earbuds; and DraftKings. More on all of those fine sponsors later in the program. We preview Alabama's home game against the Vanderbilt Commodores tonight with the midweek podcast. The Crimson Tide opening its SEC slate against VU. And Travis, it's a game where Vanderbilt comes in offensively despite a quarterback change with some confidence, averaging more than 40 points per game. Of course, they began the season with Mike Wright behind center. He was outstanding in their big opening win against Hawaii, and they have since turned to a freshman, a highly regarded freshman, A.J. Swan, four-star recruit from Canton, Georgia. He'll be coming to Tuscaloosa looking to make a name for himself. He'll have a chance, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's got some nice pieces around him too. That's what I like about maybe making that move to a freshman, because you do have a veteran running back in Ray Davis coming off a 100-yard rushing performance last week against Northern Illinois. And Will Sheppard, man, we talk about a lot of times games like this, right? You look at Vanderbilt's roster and you say, well, how many of those guys could either start or at least be significant contributors to Alabama? And I think Will Sheppard at the wide receiver position is definitely one of those guys. And I think a couple of the linebackers might even qualify from that perspective.
Ricky Wright, a former Alabama commitment at linebacker, as a matter of fact, an Alabama native, one of three on that starting defense. The nose guard is a Alabama native as well, B.J. Anderson, in that secondary. So, and Vanderbilt's recruited the state of Alabama fairly heavily over the years. It's not obviously that northern end of the state is pretty darn close to Nashville. So geography wise, an opportunity for Clark Lay, and they've got three more starters from Alabama on this defense.
Yeah, I like their linebacker level. Also, they're in the inside with Anthony Orji and Ethan Barr, and then they went to the transfer portal and brought in Kane Patterson from Clemson. So there are some areas of this this Vanderbilt football team where they are certainly SEC competitive. They're getting some guys back too from some injuries and some suspensions. So it's a good time of the season. If Vandy's going to play Alabama, it needs to be in September, because with the depth disparity between these teams, if these clubs met in mid to late October or November, you don't know what you're going to get with Vanderbilt roster wise after the midway point of the season. And I think Vandy does have a couple of injuries to keep an eye on, with an emphasis on that offensive line. That's not a good place to be down potentially a couple of starters if it does play out that way Saturday night.
No, definitely not. Alabama offensively looking to find its identity still a little bit, I think. And that's not to say they've not been effective at times. I mean, they've put up a massive number of points against inferior competition, only 20, of course, against the Texas Longhorns. But solidification on the offensive line, still something Alabama's searching for, I think, not only personnel-wise, but also just in the overall performance. And the wide receiver positions also, I think, a little bit up in the air, partly because they don't have everybody back yet. Still waiting on JoJo Earl, probably a couple of weeks away from his return to the lineup. Still not clear what the transfer Tyler Harrell might be able to contribute to this offense. And so those are continue to be a couple of areas where I think have a lot of fan focus, let's say.
Yeah, I think wide receiver, you almost got the sense Wednesday post practice, Nick Saban's latest media opportunity, that Nick's getting a little tired of talking about it. Not who, in terms of who's not available. The question on Wednesday was about Aaron Anderson. We've heard about JoJo Earl, and I think for maybe one or two of those guys, are we getting to the point where it's fork in the road time in terms of we're either going to hear from them soon or we're not going to hear from them at all during the 2022 season? Is it too early for that still, Chase? I think JoJo Earl is a guy we're definitely still going to hear from. But at what point do we get with Tyler Harrell and let's say Aaron Anderson, where maybe the train has left the station for the 2022 season?
Yeah, you don't necessarily get the sense that when healthy, he's just going to step right in and explode for this team, right? And you don't make that assumption. You never know. You wait and see. He hadn't had a chance to get on the field yet. He hadn't been healthy. At the same time, there was never a sense when he was healthy in the preseason, Travis, that he was just going to take over like there was with Jamison Williams coming out of Ohio State as a transfer a year ago. Nick Saban, I believe, said in early August of 21, look, this Jamison Williams kid is going to be a featured target, a featured skill guy for us. Tyler Harrell still finding his feet, I think, even when healthy.
Here's the thing that works in the advantage of a Tyler Harrell and why I don't think you can just give up on that prospect for this season at this point. They still lack twitch at the wide receiver position, right? Jermaine Burton, Trayshawn Holden, Ja'Cory Brooks bring a lot of great things to the wide receiver position, but those aren't the twitchiest three wide receivers. And when I say twitch, I'm talking about explosiveness still in college football. So you never give up on speed, and especially that kind of speed, regardless. But for now, anyway, it looks like Alabama's riding with what they've got. And as you outlined, perhaps you see JoJo Earl in the next week or two. I certainly would love to have him for that road trip to Arkansas, but if not, then A&M and Tennessee back to back would be a good spot too.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the running game continues to be part of this discussion too. Alabama's been explosive in spots with the running game, which you kind of expect with a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, who is really kind of a powder keg of a running back with his speed and his open field ability. But you don't see this running game grinding down to down for 4 to 6 yards like we might have seen some of Nick Saban's earlier teams at Alabama. The consistency with that, not quite there yet. And so that's something as well to watch, I think, for this offense. If they're able to, frankly, just push people around a little bit better, get a little bit more push up front, and get these backs 2 or 3 yards before their first contact at least.
Yeah, and I think, Vanderbilt this week, you look at them from a pass defense perspective, it hasn't been very good. They got lit up by Elon, an FCS program a couple weeks ago. And so similar to ULM last week, but maybe even as much or more so, this is an opportunity once again for the Alabama passing attack to get into more of a groove, more of a consistency. And you're right, though, the run game, that to me, the second half last week, understanding it was ULM, that was a very welcome sight offensively for Alabama because they were taking chunks 4 or 5 backs deep in that game. And so it'll be interesting to see if they can carry that over because, again, at the linebacker level, at least, Vanderbilt's going to offer you a legit SEC challenge on Saturday night.
Some players on the Alabama side of things that we've been seeing get a little bit more action of late, get into the games a little bit earlier maybe of late. Terrion Arnold comes to mind. Deontay Lawson, the linebacker, comes to mind. Obviously, Tyler Booker at offensive guard. We discussed him a little bit on the Sunday Nighter a few days ago. Among these guys and anyone else you can think of, Travis, who do you see as maybe a potential starter in waiting, or somebody who could maybe really be a huge factor for this team toward the end of the season when it gets into crunch time?
Based on what we saw in the second half, I guess, of the Texas game, and then for the first couple of three quarters, or really last week's game against ULM, it's hard for me to imagine Terrion Arnold not being back out there in that starting role opposite Kool-Aid McKinstry Saturday night. Tyler Booker is pushing, obviously, at both guard positions. I think that's a luxury they have now, and knowing that if for whatever reason they feel like they need to go to him at left or right guard, they're going to be in really good shape. Amari Niblack, he's an interesting dude at tight end because there's been that need there for that additional tight end. Now, Kendall Randolph going back into that mix, may have something to say about that. But Niblack, especially, is a guy that can give them something different. And we talk about this offense right now, and maybe some of the bumps in the road that they've encountered surely wouldn't hurt to have Jaleel Billingsley circa 2020 available to you as a receiver from that position. And Cam Latu showed you last week, he's still capable of hitting some plays himself. So, yeah, those are some of the guys I would lean towards. Deontay Lawson, I think he's essentially considered a starter at this point by the coaching staff. Jaheim Otis, the true freshman on the nose, really, really establishing himself as a cornerstone piece for at least 3 seasons. And so you think about Alabama, you don't think as much about newcomers, especially true freshmen. Although history tells us it happens almost every year, but it seems like every year we're still surprised when it happens.
On the Kendall Randolph topic, Travis, it's interesting with this look he's had. He got it tight end last week, putting on that number 85, going back to a familiar spot for him and away from offensive guard. It is, if he remains there, it's going to be a major cut, obviously, in his snap count from being a starting guard. I mean, you know that extra tight end in short yardage, maybe you're talking 8-10 snaps, not counting, anything he might do on special teams, as opposed to 50 or 70 or however many at the offensive guard position. However, if Kendall Randolph can grade better in 8 snaps, 10 snaps as a tight end, short yardage, whatever, than he does as an offensive guard, even if it's a whole lot more snaps you're getting out of him at guard, I think if Alabama can keep him at tight end and get better play from him, even though it's far less snaps wise, if a guy like Tyler Booker or whoever, Cohen, can step in and kind of fill the void at guard as well or better than Randolph, well, now you're talking about that's where the benefit is, right?
Yeah, they're better in 2 spots with Kendall Randolph at tight end. If, in fact, what we're seeing from Tyler Booker and Javion Cohen and Emil Ekiyor is, how this thing's going to go moving forward. I'll tell you who it hurts, I think, is Robbie Oots. Oots was a guy with Latu out and Randolph at guard.
Yeah.
And he was the top guy at the tight end position. But now with Latu back and Randolph in that mix, we saw them open the game last week in 12 personnel with Randolph on the field alongside Latu. Now they had the illegal formation penalty right off the bat. But yeah, I think Kendall can be, in some games anyway, he can get into the mid-teens. I think they would like to run more 12 personnel, go with 2 tight end sets, but they just haven't had the numbers through the first couple of 3 games. But now with Kendall in that spot and maybe Niblack's emerging, I wouldn't give up on Oots either. They probably feel like they have more available to them in terms of personnel groupings.
Interactive moment here on the Talkin Tide podcast. One of our commenters, Travis, Paul Malone, questioning whether Alabama's receivers can get off of press coverage. He feels like the speed is there with these guys, doesn't see the route running, and doesn't see these guys getting off of press. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I guess Saban was asked about that on Wednesday, right? Getting separation against man coverage during his press conference, and he pointed to the two areas, whether it's your release at the line of scrimmage or if it's at the top of the route and coming out of your break. And, I don't think there's a John Mechie in terms of a route runner in this rotation right now. Mechie was elite. But, the standard is pretty high given the stretch that Alabama's come off of. And, guys like Jerry Jeudy as route runners and Devontae, you're not just talking about freaks of nature in terms of speed and quickness and all those things. They were technicians. And so, I think there's still something to be developed there from that perspective. I think there's some guys that came into Alabama with a lot of just physical tools, but in terms of polish, they weren't really close. Ja'Cory Brooks probably qualifies as a guy that, Ja'Cory Brooks might be a better pro than he ever is at Alabama, if that makes any sense, because he's just going to get better and better, right? So, there's a couple of things for it, but yeah, I mean, it starts with, look at the guys they just went through, and this was inevitable at some point, right?
It was. The spread in this one, Travis, Alabama favored by 40 to 41, depending on where you're looking. The over-under 59. Both numbers, certainly the spread's too big for me. I think the over-under may be a little bit much for me too. I guess if I had to go one way or the other, give me those points and give me the under. What about it?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I'm seeing 3 Joseph Bulovas field goals to keep this thing within the 40, 41. Vandy in the last 2 meetings, it's like 93-0 Alabama. So right. I think Vandy will get off the shutout from the last 2 games and score some points, but I don't see them scoring a ton. It's a tough spot for A.J. Swan, a freshman quarterback. I was impressed with him against NIU last week, though. He showed some moxie to go along with some obvious skills. A little different beast this week. It's just tough to say, though, too, because a true freshman quarterback scares me in terms of both taking the points and going under, because we saw some non-offensive touchdowns from Alabama last week. And when I think about true freshman quarterbacks, the possibility of that for a second straight week comes to mind fairly quickly.
Alabama football schedule for 2023 came out this week as well, Travis. I'm gonna check under.
Is that, by the way, is that one of the dumbest things the SEC does? A big schedule release for the next season when we're still in September of the current season. I mean, I get it, Goodbread, in terms of logistics, and you have to have advanced sort of notification on these things. But let me get through September of the current season before you start dropping the 2023 sched on me, right?
Well, and take a page from the NFL's book, right? Don't do this, do it in February or so, do it when there's nothing else going on.
Do it in December after the SEC championship game, before the bowl games. You got a gap there. Sure. I'm with you. Anytime from December to February. And maybe part of it is they don't want to detract from basketball season once it gets going, maybe, but there's got to be a better time.
Well, but you know what? If they followed your advice and did it in December, then the SEC basketball schedule hadn't even cranked up by then.
That's what I'm saying. If you do it in December, you're still in football mode. Yes, your SEC teams are playing basketball, but they're not in the conference schedule yet.
Right. I don't know. You're right. That's the time to do it. The brilliance of the National Football Leagues, one thing that's, I guess it's obvious enough, but I really got an inside look at it working for NFL.com for so long. The brilliance of it is they've got something to feed fans every single week on the calendar, whether it's in season, off season, whatever. So
keep the fervor going.
Some piece of there's going to be meat on the bone in one way or another.
Red meat.
Whether it's free agency, trades, news, Friday news dumps, discipline release, whatever. They
stay in the cycle.
Stream. Yep.
They stay in the cycle, no doubt.
And I think the SEC does as good a job of that, certainly, as any other conference. But there's an example where they could probably stretch things out a little bit and move some things around. Are you going to check under your historical Alabama football hood right here, Travis? Okay. The Alabama football schedule for 2023, as you know, includes a visit to USF.
Yes.
As part of a 2-for-1 game contract with the South Florida Bulls. All right. The last time Alabama played a road game against a non-Power 5, I'm going to give you, I'm going to offer you one of two hints. I'll either give you the year or I'll give you what conference the opponent was in.
Give me the,
or both. I'll give you both.
No, just give me the year, because a conference should be pretty telling, but give me the year to make it should be a little harder that way.
Year was 1992.
Ooh, gosh, how do I not? That was Tulane in the Superdome.
Nice.
Yes. That was a precursor of things to come.
As they say in
Demopolis.
Yeah. We don't script things here on Talkin Tide. That was a blind trivia question.
Well, you and I were both on campus back in 92. So that draft beer fog, I had to wade through there for a second, back when the houndstooth was real, damn it.
37-0, the final score there.
Oh, some late nights at the booth, my boy. Oof.
Yes. Yeah, no question about it. All right, the Talkin Tide podcast, moving on here. I'm going to thank a couple of sponsors really quickly. Going to start by telling you all about North River Dental Associates and former Alabama linebacker Dr. Jack Smalley and that fantastic staff of dental hygienists over there. They're going to get you taken care of with all your dental needs: endodontics, dentures, porcelain veneers, cosmetic dentistry, laser dentistry. Dr. Jack does it all. The teeth whitening services are extremely popular, also offering Botox and Juvederm treatments to tighten up those facial features. Location's really easy to find, right off of Watermelon Road at 1100 Fairfax Park, right next to West Alabama Pediatrics. You know where it's at. If you'd like to make an appointment, give them a call at 752-3506 or visit northriverdentist.com. It is North River Dental Associates.
Going to tell you about Peterbrook Chocolatier out there at 1530 McFarland Boulevard North in the Indian Hills section of Tuscaloosa. So many great treats from which you can choose. Those hand-dipped chocolate-covered strawberries. They're dipped daily at Peterbrook Chocolatier. They got the Roll Tide treats, the Alabama-themed treats. You got a big home game. SEC opener coming up Saturday at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Separate your tailgate, your viewing party from all the rest. Employ the services of Peterbrook Chocolatier. Told you, holiday season right around the corner. They've got the Halloween stuff out already, but never too early to get those Christmas orders in. You can do that right now at 205-752-0211. Corporate orders, party orders, no order too big, too small. For Peterbrook Chocolatier, 1530 McFarland Boulevard North.
All right. Up next, going to tell you a little bit about our corporate sponsor, DraftKings. The NFL action is in full swing at the DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers now can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. Make things even sweeter. You can throw down on stepped-up same-game parlays once per game day all season long. You just cannot beat that. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. You need to use the promo code TPPN, Pigskin Podcast Network acronym, and they'll get you going $200 free with a $5 bet for new customers. That's promo code TPPN only at the DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NFL. And finally, going to tell you all about these Raycon earbuds. You cannot beat them. I've got a pair, super in-ear fit with those things. The look is right, the feel is right, and the sound is fantastic with optimized gel tips for that perfect in-ear fit, 8 hours of playtime, 32 hours of battery life. It's no wonder Raycon's everyday earbuds now have more than 50,000 5-star reviews. They're just fantastic. So please remember 3 customizable sound profiles, earbud tap functions, noise isolation, and awareness mode as well. Go to raycon.com today. Use the promo code TPPN15 and you will get 15% off of your Raycon order. That's TPPN15 at raycon.com and you'll score 15% off these outstanding Raycon earbuds. Travis, we're going to close out the show as we always do. Taking a look at some of the top games around the SEC. There are 3 that stand above all others, I think. Florida at Tennessee, a traditional SEC East rivalry. Arkansas at Texas A&M, and Missouri at Auburn. A big game for Brian Harsin, and I touched on this and a couple of other mediums earlier this week, Travis. We're going to find out what these players think of Brian Harsin at home against Missouri, coming off of this embarrassing performance against Penn State. I think we're gonna. It'll be telling, I think, somewhat at least, to see how Auburn comes out of the gate in that one for him.
Yeah, I think it is a character check game, although I think maybe even the bigger concern is that what you saw from Auburn in terms of roster and quality in that thumping at the hands of Penn State tells you that it may not matter. Now, I like Auburn in the game at home, and that's only because I don't think Missouri is very good. You talk about the worst teams in the league right now. I think these are 2 of them, and Vanderbilt's in that mix as well. But yeah, you just wonder though if the ship has already sailed for Brian Harsin, and there's always an opportunity to turn it around, get a win against Missouri, and then a really difficult stretch comes up for Auburn after this week. So you wonder where that line of demarcation is for Brian Harsin, and if it wasn't last week, then it could very well be this week.
Arkansas at Texas A&M. What strikes me about the Hogs and the Aggies there, Travis, is the difference in terms of, I think, pressure on these 2 coaches. It's a big gap. Sam Pittman can do no wrong at Arkansas, right? He's riding a wave there. A lot of capital with that fan base. Arkansas playing much better football under Sam Pittman than it had time. Other side of the coin, you got Jimbo Fisher making more than almost every coach in the college game. Has a loss against App State already. App State, an excellent program, but that's an embarrassing loss, obviously, for the Aggies. Now he starts his SEC stretch. I know he just beat Miami, only scored 17 points doing it last week. But if you're Jimbo Fisher and you drop this one, you're sitting with 2 losses before you even get out of September, Travis. I don't know. It's the heat on Jimbo, I think, is about to fall this year.
Yeah, I think it's here. It's certainly at the doorstep. And what's pretty amazing is that Sam Pittman's actually got the far better quarterback situation, right? If there was one thing you would expect from Jimbo Fisher, although sort of the end of his time at Florida State, it didn't go that way either, would be that at this point, at this time in his tenure, the quarterback situation wouldn't be a major concern for Texas A&M, but it is. And, we saw Max Johnson step in there against Miami last week. He was solid, if not spectacular, took care of the football. It might take more than that this week because KJ Jefferson, Rocket Sanders, some emerging receivers for Arkansas on that side of the ball, they're capable of putting up some points on just about anybody. I think Arkansas secondary, though, is a major concern, conversely, with Jalen Catalon out. And, we'll see if A&M's able to capitalize on it. But, no, this is almost sort of a round robin, right, between Alabama, Texas A&M, and Arkansas. They all kind of see each other over the next 2 or 3 weeks here.
Florida at Tennessee. I kind of like the Vols at home in this one, Travis, although the Gators just kind of seem to have a way of getting in Tennessee's head, right?
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Give me the Vols at home. I don't trust Anthony Richardson in that road game. So what?
Yeah, history tells us not to touch Tennessee, even in a situation like this. But I'm going with Tennessee. Florida makes it exciting, but this is a tough spot on the road to go with Anthony Richardson, considering the sort of fragility he seems to be dealing with, especially anytime he throws the football. You're still seeing issues with him. If you get him off his first guy, and especially if you're playing zone coverage against this guy, he'll throw it to one of your guys. And so I'll be interested to see the approach Napier takes this week. I'll tell you this: Florida can run the football, and so that gives them a chance. The concern I have for Florida defensively sounds like Ventrell Miller, the starting middle linebacker, might be out once again for the Gators.
Yeah, looking at the series history right now between Florida and Tennessee, the Gators come in having won 5 straight in the series. Tennessee's last victory coming in September of 2016. And prior to that, Florida was on a 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, it's insane.
10 or 11 before that.
Yeah, you look at what Florida and Alabama have done to Tennessee over the last 15 or 20 years. It's illegal in some states.
Florida, definitely
in a lot of states. Yeah.
We're calling an upending of that.
Yeah, I think so.
You and I both. So we shall see. All right, that is going to do it for this fun and action-packed edition of the Talkin Tide podcast. Be sure to join Travis and I Sunday night when we recap Alabama's game against the Vanderbilt Commodores. Until then, for Travis Reier, I'm Chase Goodbread of the Tuscaloosa News, and we'll talk to you then on Talkin Tide.